have killed 12 men with my bare claws. I have led war fleets against the Kryvan Ascendancy and watched their capital burn. I am Commander Draven Kest of House Vorik, and I am, by every metric my people measure strength, undefeated. And I am currently hiding behind a supply crate from a human woman half my size. Let me explain. My people, the Vorik, are what the Republic calls a deathworld species. Our homeworld tried to kill us for 300,000 years before we finally killed it back. Acid rain, gravity twice standard, predators the size of shuttlecraft. We are built for violence because violence was the only thing that let us survive breakfast. The other species of the Republic, soft, pale, raised on gardens they call planets, fear us. They should. I have never met anything that could stand against a Vorik in single combat. Until 3 days ago, when a supply transport crash-landed on the ice moon I was inspecting, and a human medic named Sarah Voss climbed out of the wreckage, looked directly at me, 3 meters of scaled muscle and teeth, and said, "Oh good, you're big. Help me carry the wounded." Not a scream, not a plea, an instruction. I did not move. No one gives a Vorik commander instructions. But something in her voice, steady, clipped, utterly unbothered, made my body obey before my pride could object. I found myself carrying an unconscious human engineer over my shoulder while she barked orders at the rest of her crew like a general half her apparent rank. That was the first time I was afraid of a human. It would not be the last. The moon storm season had trapped all 9 survivors, 6 human, 3 Vorik engineers who'd been stationed there for a mining survey. In the transport's cargo hold for what the humans estimated would be 4 days before rescue could land. For days. On my homeworld. For days without proper shelter kills the weak. Sarah did not seem weak. She rationed supplies with brutal efficiency, set a wounded man's broken leg with her bare hands while he screamed, and she never once flinched, and organized watch shifts as though she'd done this 100 times. "You've done this before?" I said on the second night, when the others slept and only the 2 of us kept watch by the emergency heater. "Combat medic. 2 tours." She didn't look up from cleaning a knife. "You get used to it. Used to it." I turned the phrase over. My people do not get used to violence and hardship. We are built from it generation after generation until it lives in our bones. But she was soft-skinned, thin-boned by my standards, no claws, no natural armor. And yet here she sat, calm as still water, in a situation that would have broken lesser beings. "You're staring, Commander," she said. "You are not what I expected of your species." She finally looked up, and there was something sharp and amused in her expression. "Let me guess. You expected us to cry. I expected you to be afraid of me. Should I be? I had killed 12 men with these claws. I told her so, not as a threat, but as fact, the way my people establish honest footing before any exchange that matters." Sarah considered this for a long moment. Then she said, "I've watched 4 friends die in my arms trying to save them. I've held pressure on a wound for 6 hours because I refused to let a scared 19-year-old bleed out alone in the dark. You're not the scariest thing I've ever sat next to, Commander. You're just the biggest." I had no response to that. None of my honor codes, none of my war doctrines, had prepared me for a creature that could look at a Vorik and calmly file him under manageable. By the 3rd day, the food had run low and the cold had grown vicious enough that even my scales ached. I found Sarah awake at the edge of camp, staring out at the storm, and for the first time I saw something other than steel in her face. Exhaustion. Grief may be old and carried a long way. "You should rest," I said. "Can't. If I stop moving I start thinking. And thinking is worse than the cold." She wrapped her arms around herself. "You ever lose someone you couldn't save, Commander?" I thought of my brother, Torin, who died beneath Kryvan guns while I was 3 systems away. "Yes. Does it get easier?" "No. You simply grow stronger around the wound." It was the truth my father had given me, the only comfort my people know how to offer. I did not expect it to land, coming from a monster to a woman who had called me merely manageable. But she looked at me, really looked, past the scales and the claws and the 3 meters of predator instinct, and something in her shoulders eased. "That's a good way to put it," she said quietly. "Grow stronger around the wound." I removed my outer cloak, thick hide meant to hold heat against my own harsh homeworld, and set it around her shoulders before she could protest. She stiffened at the gesture, and for one heartbeat I feared I had misjudged everything. That beneath the steel, she was simply afraid of me after all, and I had just confirmed every monstrous thing she suspected. Instead, she pulled the cloak tighter and said, "Thank you, Draven. Not Commander. Not the Vorik. My name. It was such a small thing. It should not have hit me the way it did." Rescue came on the fourth morning, cutting through the storm in a blaze of thruster fire that should have felt like salvation. Instead, as the Republic shuttle descended, I found myself standing very still, watching Sarah gather her medical kit, and feeling something I had no honor code for at all. "Commander!" She stopped in front of me before boarding, and for once the steel in her voice had gone soft. "For what it's worth, you're not the monster your reputation says you are. And you," I said, "are not the fragile thing my people believe your species to be." She smiled. The first real smile I'd seen from her in 4 days, and it did something to my chest that no battle ever had. "Guess we were both wrong about each other." "Guess so," I said, testing her phrase in my own mouth, and she laughed, bright and surprised, like she hadn't expected a Vorik to make her laugh at all. She held out her hand, the human gesture of peace, I now knew, not challenge. I took it in mine, careful of my claws, and for one long moment on that dying storm, the Deathworld predator and the human medic simply stood there, neither one afraid of the other anymore. The Republic will write reports about first contact protocols and threat assessments and diplomatic precedent. They will not write about this,